Oops, music. JJ, oh, in you come. I'm on inside. All right. G'day, everyone. Welcome to the Eureka Conservative. Just getting my dog in from outside before I start. So, welcome to another week, another policy announcement coming to you from my downstairs office because I just haven't had the time to get all my stuff upstairs. So, a different bit of a look. So, I'm not too sure. They're both okay. I prefer upstairs. I think I get a bit better reception up there. It's a bit, I don't know what the word to call it, a bit foggy. So anyway, welcome to the Eureka Conservative podcast for today. I think it's the 18th, or is it the 19th of, I'll double check, the 19th of August. The year is flying. Seems like yesterday it was just New Year's. So probably because we're living in some interesting times. Just trying to get the screen right. Sorry. I've only ever done one podcast from down here before. So anyway, so just trying to get the screen right, and I think we're set. We've got a few viewers on now, which is good. I always build as the night goes on, so I think people log in as we go. So I sort of do a bit of a preamble, discuss the days and weeks events, and ramble on a little bit, as I tend to from time to time, and give people a chance to log in and see what we're going. Now, just remember, feel free to send me any questions through from chat. I'll just get that up. Where is chat? There's chat. I don't know whether I'll ever get the idea of these live streams, to be honest. I'm getting better, but I do think I might need an assistant to make it even work better. But we're a long, long way from me being in that position. So if anybody's got anything to raise in the next few minutes, don't hesitate to send me stuff through on chat. And happily answer any questions. Again, I'm sorry this week has been pretty insanely busy, so I haven't had a chance yet to now I've lost everyone. Where have I gone? What have I done here? Oh, here we go. Sorry, I'll get you all back in a minute. Here we go. I just like getting my, as I'm doing this, I like getting my YouTube stream up. Because that way, I've discovered I can just double check that my oh God, I told you it's been a crazy week. That my mic and there it is. Yep. So my mic and camera are all working, which is great. So there we go. I'm all set to go. Sorry, everyone. I've been rushing. I actually lost because the home doubles up as an office, so work from home. But when you run your own business, as I do, you can have your home as your office. So as I was doing some work, I lost track of time. So I apologise for that. So I had to take the dog quickly out for a walk because he'll go insane if I don't, and get a quick shower, come back, and here I am, all ready to go. So no guests this week. There's been so much happening but at both ends on X and politically, all that sort of thing. It's been hard to keep up, but also just from my own work. So I really haven't had the time in the last few weeks to be able to get someone else. So you've got me, myself, and I for tonight to ramble on, and I will definitely give it my best effort next week to get somebody on. But we've had some big policy announcements. We've got another one today, or tonight, I should say. Just to get the thinkers out there thinking. And I think what we're doing here via the Eureka Conservative podcast gives a real contrast to a lot of what we're seeing on X, not so much in the media, but in regards to all the marches. I put a video out on X the other day. Personally, I don't think I'll be attending. Something would have to change fairly dramatically, and I'll go through my reasons for that, which I've outlined in the past. But good luck to those who are going. I think the vast bulk of the people that are going to these marches are going with the right idea and the right intentions. I just hope it doesn't get hijacked by people with nefarious means. And called me old-fashioned, but I have a certain standard with people I associate with. I don't want to associate with any Marxist, leftist, radical Islamist. I don't want to associate with the NSN. I just want to associate with typical Aussie people, and that's why I've started this podcast. And to me, a typical Aussie person is someone who believes in a fair go, embraces getting out there and earning a living, starting a business, getting a good job, leading a good life, obeying our laws as much as possible, and building, a family and something throughout their life so they can have a good retirement. And so, nothing outlandish or extravagant, something that, we've been doing ever since I've been born into this wonderful country, but it's getting harder to do as the years go on, and the government makes it harder to do it, whatever persuasion it seems we've got at the moment. So, those who want to go and march, I totally understand why they want to march. There's a side of me, I wish I could be there, but I just have concerns with, if you've been on, I put a post up today, if you've been on social media for long enough, which I have, and if you've gotten into these conversations with the NSN types, which I have, you very quickly start identifying who is an NSN, who's radical Marxist, which I'll pretty quickly block. I don't block a lot of the NSN types because I do think I think behind a lot of the way they get sucked into this is a lot of them, their intentions, this is going to sound bizarre, a lot of them, their intentions are honourable, but it's like, oh God, I don't want to compare it to Nazi Germany, but it's a bit hard not to, considering at the crutch they're neo-Nazis, right? So, and after the dynamics are very similar. So after World War I and the restrictions the Allies put on Germany after World War I, where they basically destroyed their economy, destroyed their way of life, people became desperate, and when the Depression hit, they were just looking for anything to get back at Town Hall and the man. So I think a lot of those factors are at play at the moment in Australia. And if we go too much further down the path, you're going to find a lot of people just out of frustration getting involved with the NSN. And then they use that frustration to embed their ideology in especially a lot of young male minds. So, I mean, in my career, I've been coaching a lot of young men through basketball, like literally thousands of them. Most of them are really good kids, but there is issues out there for young men in our society at the moment, and they would naturally gravitate to that more radical element unless they've got a voice out there that can talk, hopefully, some sense to them, So there's a lot of different ways you can protest without, for example, having to go to a march. And this podcast is one of them. You can lobby your politicians. You can convene and do some gatherings to talk to some other people. You can talk to family and friends as much as that is possible. For me, it's pretty difficult because a lot of my, especially family, but also a number of my friends are on the left side, so they don't see things the same as I do. And when you do raise it, they just want to shut down the conversation. I'm sure plenty of you have gone out there with that. So we do need to be out there trying to talk to people, but especially our young people. And that's one of the things I want to establish through the podcast. So we got a number of viewers now. So I'll get onto the policy announcements and come back to that. So it's always a bit of fun. Excuse me while I get the glasses on. New glasses this week, which is nice. I think they look a bit better. Where am I? I've got to share the screen. And the mob I do the thing for, they've changed the format of the screen. So just as I was getting used to the format of this podcast, all the layout of the screen in the background has all changed on me. So anyway, I'll stop whining and just get on with it if I can. Home's coming. So I'll share that. I'm going to have to get into that a little bit. Sorry. So I'm going to my webcast. I've already published this. Last week, for those who didn't listen in, we one of the policy announcements, the latest ones, I'm sure we'll get a lot of support out there, was a criminal code for our politicians. So be sure you get to our website and have a look at that. What am I doing here? This is where I have my most trouble. Here we go, politics, right. So today we're going into a new pillar of our policy platform. So as you can see, it's starting to build. And for the first time, we're going to be talking about economy and finance. So considering our politicians, Albo and Chalmers and all them, talking about a round table, or started and engaged in a round table. These round tables, aren't really worth the paper they're written on or whatever outcomes they cut. It's certain connections to politicians. So, for example, the unions are represented. The energy industry is not really represented. How can you, I disagree with a lot of what Clive Palmer does, but he's a key figure in the energy industry. He should be there in the energy and resources industry. I'm not too sure whether representatives from Gina Reinhardt's company there, but if not, why not? So I think when it starts from a political base, it's always a bit of a problem. So anyway, we've that inspired me to come up with this latest policy platform. I'll see if I can enlarge that a bit. We'll have a look on what we've got. Where am I? Sorry, guys. Like I said, I'm still getting used to this. Here we go. I'm just trying to make sure you can see that. Maybe not. Bear with me, guys. I want to get it up so you can see this. There's a little bit to it. So I'm just going to try something else. Just give me 2 ticks. I do this every single week. Sorry if it causes any frustration out there, but I'm an idiot. Here we go. Where am I? Open with. I should have had this all set up, but as I said, I was rushing a bit tonight. I'll try and do better next week. Here we go. So yes, it is. This will be better. So bear with me, everyone. I'm getting there. I've got to stop that screening. I'll be back on your screen. There I am. Now I'm going to rejoin the screen. Oh, my God. That's it. Okay. There we go. That's a lot better. So worth the effort. So we are going to be looking. Now, I'm no economist. I'm not an accountant. All right. I don't want to be claiming to be an economist or an accountant. That is not my field. So I think one part you've got to do politically with leadership is to draw in people. And I'm not a big fan of Nigel Farage in Reform for the way he's treated Tommy Robertson. And there's also some other issues I've got there. But the one thing that he did bring up, which I am supportive of, is why do we need to put politicians as head of ministry, so to appoint them as ministers? Why can't we be more like in America, where Trump, for example, recruits the best people from outside politics to head up a number of ministries, whatever you call them, departments over there, and they sit in his cabinet? Why does it have to be a politician with no idea? So that's where this is coming from. Personally, well, I've got a good idea, but that's all it is about the economy and finances. I would rather, delegate to people who've got a much better idea, as long as they're not politically aligned, corporate aligned, or union aligned. So we need to have people who've got backgrounds maybe in those areas, but they're not aligned, and they can give us a full and frank review of our economy. And because I think our economy needs a drastic overhaul, and I don't think there's many that would disagree with that. So I'll go through each point and then go from there. So it's the pillars of economy and finance for the first time, and we want a proper economic roundtable, unlike what we're seeing right now. Our economy and its structure needs a full review and restructure. We need to get our best and brightest together to redefine how that should be how we work. I don't know whether anyone else has this, but these automatic spell checks just kill me. Even if you put in how, it's just converted that to our, so I'll fix that up thing, how we work, save, produce, and tax as a country. Now, when we say best and brightest, that also could incorporate people from outside Australia, for example. Anybody who can come up with solutions to make Australia a much more wealthy country, a country that taxes a lot less, that gets government out of our lives and allows us to get on with building wealth, employing people, and living the best life we possibly can. So the objectives of any review needs to focus on getting the government out of our lives, reducing taxes to the minimum we need, increasing productivity and wealth, and providing Australians with the ability to enjoy well-paid jobs to eliminate the cost of living issues we currently have. Any review needs to come up with the structures to have corporates work for the benefit of Australian citizens and not just for their shareholders. Now, I'm not opposed to companies making a profit to the benefit of their shareholders, but we've got to reduce, for example, monopolies like we have with the supermarkets. So there's a bit of competition in every single industry that can ensure that prices are not being manipulated to increase those profits and, benefit the shareholders, but citizens who aren't shareholders then get shafted. So what do they call it? Ponzi capitalism or something like that. Any review needs to find a pathway to eliminate subsidies for companies in any field that doesn't encourage competition and lowers retail prices for Australians. So the one that comes straight to mind there is the energy sector. I was reading the other day about how much taxes the fossil fuels industry pay compared to the renewables. Renewables basically pay next to nothing, and the fossil fuels, I can't remember the figure, but it was either 74 million, which sounds a bit low, or 74 billion goes back into the economy. My guess is it's 74 billion. So I'll have to try and find that. But there's subsidies that we as taxpayers are paying to companies. So this is this Ponzi capitalism again, where a privileged few that are rubber stamped by the government are getting taxpayers' money to give them a leg up. Now, a bunch of those companies, for example, Fortescue, have been provided with a bunch of taxpayers' money only to pull out of projects they committed to. Now, are we going to see that taxpayer money come back from that billionaire? My guess is no. So, we've got to look at a lot of these Ponzi schemes and just eliminate them and allow companies to compete on their merits. This is something I agree with a number of libertarians on. I know they believe in this. I think if you're conservative, you should be believing in this. And if you're going to start a business, it's got to stand on its own 2 feet and survive and compete for customers because it provides a better service or a better product. So we certainly have got to get a review into that and eliminate it not just in the energy industry, but across the board. Any review needs to research across other global economies to discover how we can generate the maximum amount of wealth from our natural resources for Australian citizens. Now, this is something I'm going to research in a little bit more, but from what I understand, and I'm happy for anyone to contribute this, for example, both Norway and the United Kingdom, they have massive oil reserves, especially Norway. And Norway manipulate that so their citizens benefit, and they get a lot more revenue back from those exports back to their citizens that then fund a bunch of programs, where Australia doesn't get the same bang for their buck. The same thing on the gas. I can't remember which Middle Eastern country it is, but I think it was either Qatar or the United Arab Emirates. And basically, their citizens don't pay any tax because their gas exports, they get a much better bang for their buck, and that goes back into their public projects. So it just eliminates the need for collecting tax or tax at a high rate. So we have got to start duplicating some of these and get our citizens the biggest bang for buck. Now, obviously, one of the most important ones, we export all this coal. Are we getting the best value for it back? My argument is I doubt we would. And the other export that we should be increasing and getting great value going forward is our uranium stockpiles and resources. With the AI coming on and the data processing sites they're going to have to cater for that increased energy needs through AI, Those what do they call them? The smaller uranium reactors that they're developing. There's going to be a huge need moving forward for uranium and uranium resources. So Australia's in a prime position, but we just can't allow politicians not to give us the biggest bang for buck and make sure that every Australian citizen benefits from that. Any review needs to identify, as I said, Ponzi schemes that favour one section of Australians over another and come up with solutions to eliminate them. One Ponzi scheme I just talked about there was the energy industry. Another one I would argue is the Indigenous industry, how they lock up land. And I've talked to a few people from within who have contacts within the energy industry, and the amount of revenue that floods towards Indigenous communities from bonuses from the I can't remember. I'm having a bad day, but they get basically the Indigenous communities get part of their revenue profit paid to them from the energy industry, and they make an absolute killing of it. That should be going across the whole demographic of Australia, not just one part. So that's part of the review that it needs to identify. Any review must identify methods to increase productivity. We can't be a wealthy society without that. Innovation and entrepreneurship. Now, that is going to be a key part later on in a part of our policy for education. We need to get our youth away from all these gender-bending, trans bullshit, educational policies and teach kids how you can make a dollar, whether that's through Bitcoin, whether that's through being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, being an innovator, how you can do that with the maximum productivity that we can find by working smarter, not harder, all those sorts of things. So that next generation or the next generations coming forward have the ability to earn some high-paying jobs. And the best way to earn a high-paying wage is to have a successful business or a successful company. So I think we need to get a lot more of that and get rid of our tall poppy syndrome and have that right across the economy. That would be another part of the review. And any review needs to come up with solutions to tax reform that ensures wages as much as possible stay in citizens' pockets while ensuring governments are frugal. Oh my God, I did this in a rush again. Sorry, everyone. Yet efficient in their spending and budgets. These are just the first criteria of any review outline that we're going to be providing. We will have more to come on a lot of these areas. And the reason I'm hoping we have more to come is I hope people out there who have got far better ideas than me will provide them and we can just build on this. Now, when I talk about a review, so in America, they have Doge, where their goal was to identify overspending. I think we should have that, but that should be part of this review. I would even go as far, and I'm happy to have feedback on this, as to establish a ministry, because this would be a ministry that identifies how we can create wealth, create productivity, forget a round table, get someone from within business and with a corporate background who knows how to make a profit, and their shareholders is every single Australian. And eliminate another ministry and put this in charge. So basically to make Doge a part of this ministry, where identify wasteful spending, but also ways we can restructure our economy, restructure our tax system, come up with ideas for productivity, and make sure that every citizen is benefiting from the resources that we are exporting out of this country. And every Australian can enjoy taking as much of their wage home, back to their families, back to their bank accounts, back to Bitcoin, back into real estate, and the cost of living gets that back down to a point where if people want to have families and start families, they can afford to do so. And on one wage, like it used to be, they can have a family, buy a car, buy a house, enjoy a holiday. And that should be the goal that we should be able to get to. Now, if anyone comes to me and says, well, we can't get back there, I will push back on that pretty hard. It's not about whether we can't get back there. We have to get back there and get that standard of living back in this country. So that's our latest policy. So be interesting to get some chat on that. Now, sorry, guys. Where am I? Restream. I've got to get out of that. Here I go again. Oh my God. Here we go. Is that it? Remove. Ha! There it is. So I do this through Restream. It's actually pretty good software for doing a podcast from, if any of you are considering it. But yeah, it's like any IT or software, and I've dealt with that for a few years. You just get a sort of used to your background dashboard, and then as you've gotten used to it, they change the whole format and layout, and you're trying to find your way again. So that is part of my issues tonight. So you're just going to have to forgive me. But that's the policy. So we're starting to really build a nice little policy platform now. We've got I'll share it a little bit with you. I'll just summarize it. Here I go again. I'll get the screen up. Stop screening. Start screening. The Conservative. So we'll go back in there just for a minute. Get out of that. And just to give you a bit of a look. So here we go. So this is our page. So this is every week when we announce a policy. So these are our pillars. So Christianity, we've got a policy under that. Nationalism, yes. Conservatism, yes. Justice, yes. Hope and innovation. We nearly could put tonight's under there, but we haven't quite got that yet. Governance, definitely yes. And tonight, for the first time, economy and finance. So again, anybody who watches these podcasts, and if you think we should be adding another pillar to it, then feel free to provide it. So as you can see, locking in our Christian culture, that's a pushback against the radical Islamists that we're getting into the country. A 10-year freeze on immigration. I think that's pretty popular and pretty self-explanatory. Probably one of the more radical, for a conservative, it's, to be radical is a bit of an interesting one. But in the pillar of governance and nationalism, we're putting out there that we should become an Australian republic. And part of that is the only way to get to a lot of what we're talking about is to tear down what we currently have as a constitution and replace it. And the quickest way to do that through our legal constitutions, all that is a republic, withdraw from any treaty or organisation that isn't in an Australian's best interest. So WF, NWO, NWO or NHA? Sorry, NWO is wrestling. Oh, God, it has been a long day. The introduction of a Bill of Rights into our Constitution, so that ties in with the Republic. Electoral and government reform, I think everyone should have a really good look at that. I think there's some really good ideas in that. This one's under the pillar of governance and justice, holding our politicians to account. So there's two parts to that. I think we'll have a third one coming through. So that, again, is outlined on that. I think, again, that would be pretty popular. And finally, a proper economic roundtable to ensure we have reform across our economy, reform and restructure. So as you can see, we're having a bunch of policy announcements that we've put. Now, some people are telling me, well, you shouldn't, what are you doing? You're forming a political party. Why are you doing this? You're never going to get all this through. Well, if you don't try, you'll never get it through in the first place. And no, we're not forming a political party, at least not at the moment. We'll see where this journey takes us. I have no desire to get into politics whatsoever. I do have a desire to lobby politicians and political parties. I do have a desire to try and encourage enough people to help me to impact our politicians. But that's totally different from getting actually into the cesspit of politics. For the good people that do get into that, I admire them greatly. I just couldn't really jump into that cesspit. It's a cesspit. So good on the really good people that get it. And hopefully my idea is to target those good people and lobby them and try and get them to come up with something that we can all get behind and support. So the last thing our country needs right now is another political party. I'm just going to show you do I have it? You're going to have to bear with me here on this. We're just getting my pages up. Where is it? This piece says, analyze, is this all on? I'll double check you've got it. Sorry, guys. Here I go again. Eureka Conservative. There we go. I want to keep giving this event a plug, especially for those. Here we go. I'm going to share. Bear with me. Open with Here we go, googlechrome.com. So I'm going to share that again. Bear with me. We've got an event on the 4th of September, especially if you live in Melbourne. So if you live in Melbourne, it would be great to get some people along to this. We're going to keep pushing it up. It's only a few weeks away now. So on Thursday, September 4th, commencing at 7 p.m. at the Hobson's Hotel in Melrose Street, Sandringham, right next to the bay. We're going to do a uniquely Australian thing, and we're going to have a night where we all have a palmer and a pot. We all have a chat. We'll make some presentations there. And, oh, God, now I've lost it. And we'll have a chat beforehand. So we get there at 7. You can order a meal. You can have a beer. We can introduce each other, have a bit of a chat. At 8 o'clock, we'll do a presentation covering a lot of the policies, but also how we want to move this thing going forward. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end of it. Now, if you want to go to these marches, that's fantastic. But what we're trying to do, and I totally support you doing it, by the way. So I'm not going to make any judgments on any people who want to go. My personal opinion is I'd rather focus on this for me, and anybody else is interested. And we're going to be holding these. The goal is once a month across suburbs in Melbourne, and just recruit more people to it. So we can get a organisation up, for example, that it's like Get Up, or the groups that get behind these Palestinian marches or whatever, and just try and get a group up that can get more organised, that can actually lobby politicians and political parties, and in doing so, giving the good people within inside those parties the courage to take up, if not all of our policies, a whole bunch of them. So if they continue to start going woke, so my point, for example, within the LNP, I would say it breaks about 50-50 now. So you've got to remember, partway through this term, a lot of senators' terms finish and the new senators come in. I'm not too sure when that is, but it is, I think, sometime this year. So there's a lot of people within the LNP that sat in the party room meeting that voted Susan Ley into the leadership position. Now, they'll be gone probably and I think this was smart if it was hasty or, it could only be hasty, really. I know a lot of people argue you can be a leader from the upper house, but realistically, you probably need to be in the lower house to be able to take the battle to elbow. So the only one who qualifies for that, in my opinion, is Andrew Hastie, and he's been making the right noises. And if he's been just waiting for that opportunity to make sure he's got the votes, politically, that's very smart. So I'm hoping there's going to be, at least 50 or the majority, and it's certainly sounding that way from a lot of the stances they're taking that lean on the conservative side. So we've got to find a way, once they're in power, to start lobbying them and give them the support, but more importantly, the courage they need to really just isolate the moderates, if not remove them, and give us something we can get behind. Now, so that's the whole purpose of what I'm trying to do, and I need more conservative-minded people, especially guys. I keep punching this younger ones on this night. I remember when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, a palmer and a pot night was a great night. So I enjoy my beers still, even at my age. I definitely enjoy a palmer and a chips. Just that picture of it's getting me hungry already. So I couldn't think of a more Aussie way to get people together than getting into a good pub. This is a great pub, by the way. Having a palmer and pot, a good feed, a chat, a Q&A, and getting people's details and go. Now, we're not getting any of these at the moment. So if people can jump on the website and go to events and just register their details so we can communicate to you, that would be fantastic. So I'm going to be putting this up every single day on X if you want to share it. If you know people who live in Melbourne, people want to turn up on the night, they can do that, but it does make it then difficult for us to plan. But they can certainly do that. The whole point is to get this whole movement, if you want to call it that, going forward and getting on its feet for the first time. So, and we get away from just being a podcast. So I'll go through that in a minute. I know there's a lot of podcasts. I'll just get that screen down where you feel like everyone's just talking at you all the time. I watched one last night, and we all like different podcasts. So I'm hoping I'm not going to offend anyone by saying this, but I've actually really enjoyed their podcast till last night. But Topher Field's gone on a bit of a thing against all these people who are marching, and I can't remember the girl he has, who I actually really like. She she's pretty straightforward. But last night, they just went on the attack a little bit with people who disagree with them. And yeah, we've all got to be able to have our opinions and be able to do different sort of. I'm just checking. Oh, sorry, guys. Just had something happen here at my end. Welcome to. Oh no, we got it. So I just double checking if I had any chats on YouTube. So they had. I can't remember her name. She's a really nice kid. So I'm at the age when everyone's under 40 or so, you're a kid. So I'm sure a lot of my fellow boomers would understand that. But they basically were attacking anybody that had a crack at them. Now, you know, if you're going to get on like I do here, I get a lot of people having a crack at me. I must have a bit of a narcissistic side because I kind of enjoy it. When they come at me, I like coming back at them. Sometimes I'll block. Most times I won't, unless they really get abusive. I had one guy coming on just to pick a fight, and he got a bit abusive, so I blocked him. But I'm quite willing to engage with a lot of these, and sometimes I'm quite willing to stir the plot. So I wouldn't get a game in AFL football at the moment. Otherwise, I'd be suspended a bit. But and who knows what happens when, you know, the censorship czar, what's her name? Julia Mann Grant gets in control. So make the most of me while I'm still here. I hope I'll continue. But I like the cut and thrust of it all. So that's my narcissistic side coming out. But, I mean, there was a point like I started watching it because I've been enjoying it. And look, I disagree with Topher on a lot of issues. But lately, a lot of the issues that he's been bringing up and talking about has really resonated with me. And I just find outside the political period that I actually am in furious agreement with him. I just find I don't know the right way of putting it because I've offended him before, so I may offend him again. But I think he's just got to become a little less up himself. I don't know the polite way of saying that. So if I offend you, Topher, and you ever watch this, it's not meant to be offensive. But, mate, when you rant on about how you've been doing this for 15 years and no one knows or has walked in your shoes, and because you've been you're having a go at people you accuse of being around 5 minutes, well, how do you know they've been around 5 minutes? I mean, I don't. You know, people could throw that accusation at me, for example. I've been fighting my own battles in what I think is right for back in 2021. Now, you also had a crack at people with their own name and face on there. Now, my face gets on the podcast all the time, but I do understand. So before Musk took over Twitter, I was under my own name, had my face up on my profile, do all that, and I had a Sky News host, a current Sky News host, get me kicked off Twitter. I got canned. So once Musk took over, I managed to get that back, but by then I'd come under the auspices of the Conservative, because that was basically my ideology. And I wasn't quite willing to share it before Musk took over because I knew I'd probably get canned again. So I think there's a lot of people on social media that do that. So I just don't think that's a legitimate way to attack. And they both went on this last night and they swore their heads off, really said some nasty things about people who don't want to put their face on there, who don't want to put their name on there. Look, I totally get that. I totally get the people who want to remain anonymous on social media for fear of being attacked or taken down, especially with the censorship that's about to come in. Now, you can call people cowards, you can call people all that, but a lot of people have just got their own lives to get on with. They've got kids to raise. They've got to figure out how they're going to get the money to pay the next month's rent or put the meals on the table. And they just want to get things off their chest on social media. So why should they need to identify themselves? I mean, these days, people have lost their jobs by identifying themselves. In England, people have gone to jail for identifying themselves. So, and I know there's ways and means for doing it, but why just make the whole process easy? I just found last night their show to be a bit confronting. So, which is a pity because, like I said, a lot of the stuff they put previously was really good. And even this week, I agreed with Topher on his views about his concerns with the Nazis and the neo-Nazis. But then it went back on a bit of a bend about the freedom marches in Canberra and all that. You know, that was 3 years ago. Sorry. I mean, sometimes we need to move on from a lot of that. And you can't just keep going back to that to justify your own positions, and no one can go out there. And I do get in podcast, you've got to try and find a way to raise money. I'm doing that through a company and shares. I've just finished a bot that goes to every follower. So apologise if you got my message. But, we're going around it in a bit of a unique way. Instead of asking people to donate, we've started a company so people can actually buy a stake in our company, and hopefully over the journey we make that company successful and they can get a return on it and might be able to sell shares or do all that sort of thing. So it's not, you just find different ways to finance it. So, and I've got no problem with them having merch and all that, but I sort of do have a problem where you just shove it front and center, and then you're critical of a lot of other people for having their own opinions or trying to organise their own protests. So even with the NSN types, I was babbling on about them before. Do they have a right to protest? Yes, they do. Islamic things have a right to protest. My issue with protest is where does free speech cross the line to intimidation? So I'll give you an example. There was one guy that Thomas Sewell bashed the crap out of. He attacked him. Thomas Sewell, the NSN leader, if you ever watched any of his stuff, he's a pretty strong guy. He's physically fit. He's an intimidating sort of guy. And he seems, look, I disagree with him violently on all sorts of matters, but he can speak well too. So he's a leader, and I've got no doubt he'd have a bit of a nasty streak in him. Most Nazis do. But a homeless guy came and had a crack, and he actually got him on the ground, beat the crap out of him. Now, he didn't throw the first punch, but he can handle himself. So so I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the radical Islamists that walk across the bridge with their faces covered and they've got the terrorist flags. I don't agree with the NSN types who've got the big mask on as well. What do they call those big face coverings, balaclavas or whatever? Show your face. On that part, I would really agree with Topher and his mate that if you're going to go out and publicly protest, show your face. And I think actually it should be a crime if your face is covered. Why is your face covered? Because you've got nefarious reasons to have your face covered. So if you want to protest, go protest. But we shouldn't have to put up with it every single week for 2 years. Everyone's over it. And that's where I think free speech crosses the line into intimidation. Personally, I would like an investment into some land somewhere, preferably out near the country, where anyone who's got a beef, they can notify the media, they can notify the police, and they can get out of the way of everyone else who wants to get on with their life and go to that space and have their protest there. Why do business owners in the city who pay lease, they pay taxes, they pay payroll tax, they've got to get all their products in there, why do they have to be the victims of all these protests who come in and scare people away from the city, and that way they lose business? Why do they need to have to tolerate that? Now, where does free speech cross over into intimidation or to harassment or to what do they call it when you stop a business owner being able to conduct business? There's a term for it, I can't remember. Restraint of trade, So when do the liberties of people who want free speech override the liberties of people who want to earn a living, build a business and get on with life? So I'm all for free speech, but maybe we need to have a bit of a different look at it. And I know a bunch of libertarians, which I disagree with, are against Brad Batten's idea of a permit. I think a permit is a good idea. I just think it needs to be an independent body that grants them, and there should be conditions about the permit. So, for example, put a maximum amount of protest that any organisation can conduct in a year, and there's got to be conditions on the way they conduct their protest. So the one thing I'd actually liked about, for example, the NSN march down the middle of Melbourne was 1 o'clock in the morning. So they're not really going to, hurt any business or disrupt anyone. So unlike our Palestinian friends who just think it's their right to disrupt everything and intimidate people, all that. So, I actually also think, and it could be controversial, I actually don't think people should be bringing overseas nonsense to our streets to protest on. No, if you want to protest about Australian issues, fine. If you want to protest about, issues overseas, guess what? Get on a plane, get on a boat, go over there, protest there. Go to the embassies, go to, if you're pissed off with Israel or you're pissed off with Iran or you're pissed off with Russia, go to their embassies, protest out the front of their embassies, get off Australian streets and let people get on with their lives. So that was my little bit of a spiel there. So it'll be interesting on August 31st. I'm pretty confident I know the way mainstream media will portray it. I'm not confident that nefarious groups won't try and infiltrate the protest. I've seen a lot of woeful stuff online, what's getting talked about. It's blatant racism, and that is not what Australia's about. And that's one of the reasons I won't be going to the march. I think having our flag associated with blatant racism, and that's where that's against a Muslim person, a Jewish person, a Christian person, an atheist person, a person from China, a person from India. I'm against mass immigration, but I also am putting out a 10-year freeze on immigration. But it's not because I hate Jews, Indians, Muslims, all that sort of thing. I just think we need to define what we want Australia to be, number one. And number two, we've got to get our infrastructure right before we start bringing people in, number two. And number three, we've got to get ourselves into a position where people can have families, we can start, having kids again. Our birth rate is abysmal. If everyone talks about maintaining our culture, well, one day, the one way you can guarantee you can lose your culture, you can lose your way of life, is by not having kids. There was a woeful stat today that in Gen Z kids, out of the Gen Z kids, 28% of them were killed by abortion. So for all those arguing about our culture, for all those ones arguing about how we have to maintain, the white nationalist or whatever, why are we killing our newborns in that greater number? I did a calculation, or someone did a calculation, I can't remember. They asked Grok, and there was two numbers that came out. That equated to some, I think, and I'll double check it, after this, it was something like 400,000 unborn kids were killed by abortion. It's not ending a pregnancy, you're killing a human life. And how many of those 400,000 kids would have been legit Aussies that would have gone and been builders, accountants, politicians, police officers, in the army, scientists, innovators? In that 400,000, we could have killed off the next Elon Musk. So there's got to be we've got to address that situation. So I'm a Catholic, so I'm very much pro-life. The only time I think an abortion should be considered, personally, is when the mother's life's at threat, and that should be a decision the mother and father make, or if there's just the mother makes and family. I'm appalled by those two things. The young ladies that say, well, I've had 9 abortions and I love abortions, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how can you love an abortion? You're killing a human life. I'm also appalled by young men who think women are a sexual conquest, and it doesn't come with some sort of responsibility and accountability. Now, on their defense, a lot of them don't know their children are being aborted. So, it's just something, we moralize over the genocide in other countries, supposed genocide. What about the genocide right underneath our noses? We don't moralize about that a lot. So you know what that means we are? We're a bunch of hypocrites. So we've got to get our own house in order. So if we want an Aussie culture, we have to start having families again, and that was part of that economic thing I put in there. So we have to get our productivity up, our innovation up. We've got to get the maximum bang for buck out of our resources. We've got to get the government out of people's lives. These aren't dramatic ideas. We've got to get taxes down, and we've got to allow people to be able to earn a good living where one wage can cover having a family, a house, a car, all the basics, education, all that sort of thing. So that's where we need to get Australia back to, what we used to have. So and we need to encourage, I know it's frowned upon in a lot of areas, not here. We need to encourage families again. We need to encourage marriage again, proper traditional marriage, where a man marries a woman and they have some kids, and when they have a kid, they're grateful that they've got a healthy boy or girl, and they're not worried about whether they should have been a boy or girl. Get back to common sense. I mean, what we're doing in this country at the moment, and I think most people land on the position I've said, but we sit back and we allow the idiots from the insane asylum to govern this country. The fact that we had this ridiculous policy in Victoria, in our schools, about trying to encourage 5-year-olds to think about whether they're a boy or a girl. I mean, for heaven's sakes, where are we going with all this nonsense? So I don't know whether that'll get me in trouble. Maybe one day it will. But and the censorship, I could go on and on all night. I don't want to bore you a lot with that. So anyway, that's my, pardon the pun here, 2 bobs worth. It is time. I'm looking for my glasses. And I've got my dog asleep at my feet, as he does. It's time to get into I got someone. Oh, screen share. I've still got screen share on it. See, I told you this layout is killing me. Stop screen share. There we go. So we've got a good core group here this week. Last week was a bit tough, but thank you for all coming on board. I've been rabbiting on now for nearly an hour. So we'll get on with the events of the week. I don't know how many have I got. Like I said, it's been a pretty big week. So for those who haven't been with me before, what am I doing? I'm sure some people are either getting frustrated with me or having a really good laugh at me. So I go into my X account and I'm going, what I do is over the week I tend to, where am I? Oh God, here I go again. I've got to get home. Oh, I'm on my notifications. What an idiot. So I'm sure some of you is having a good laugh at my expense, or some of you, I can't, what the hell? Messages, profile, more. Here we go, bookmarks. The interesting today with Trump, that I'll just see, make sure I've got my thing going again. Yeah, beautiful. Interesting today with Trump. I didn't see it, but there was a lot of people last night that were carrying on about Bolt and Sheridan on Sky News, and how they just got TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, bad, and they were trying to say what he's done, what a waste of time the peace thing is, and how they're undermining it. Well, you know what? As the world leader said today, Trump's done more in 2.5 weeks than what Biden administration did in 3.5 years. So, good on him for getting him around a table. That in itself was an amazing effort. So, anyway, let's get through it. I'll tell you what march I'm really interested in seeing is Tommy Robinson's march on September 13th. That man is an absolute warrior. So, again, I hope I don't offend people too much, but that guy was prepared to put his integrity on the line, his ethics on the line. He's gone to prison twice for those ethics and integrity. And he's one of the few voices that was speaking out on behalf of all those girls that got raped. And this is the concern. Topher is banging on about how immigration is not the problem. I think Topher's misread that whole thing. I think the big issue that Australians are seeing is our country's changing through the immigration. It doesn't matter the numbers. We're just changing. So, and just listen to this guy. And this is what I think the real concern at the heart of it is.
Every religion, and Allah is not shy of the truth. We don't say that Islam is here to live, to coexist with lots of different religions and all of us can just hold hands and be friends. This religion was sent to dominate the world. It was sent to be superior, to extinguish the light of every other religion and to be superior to it. We're not shy to say it, and we don't find that to be something that we should be shy to say. That this religion has been sent to dominate, to wipe out, to take out every other religion, to eclipse it, to be superior to it, to have the people leave every religion and to accept Islam. And if that requires fighting to achieve it, then it requires fighting to achieve it. Because the greatest purpose for which jihad was legislated is to make the word of Allah the highest and the word of those who disbelieve the lowest. Allah is not shy of the truth. We don't say that Islam is here.
So interesting conversation there. Now, I've got no doubt we've got a few imams like him in Australia. Now, I know a number of Muslim people, and they're good people. They have families, do their things, keep nose out of trouble. But there is a concern for me is how many of them think these things without telling us. So one thing, if you look into it a little bit, under Islam, it is okay for a Muslim person to lie to an infidel. So that's a Christian person, a Jewish person, anybody who doesn't believe in Islam. So we just don't know how much of this is true, how much of it's fact. But this guy, there's enough of them that come out and just say it. So I have two words for this guy, and that's just fuck off. Sorry for the French, but that's where it is. He can that what he just said there. That is treason. That is absolute treason. He's saying he wants to overthrow basically the laws, the government, the faith, everything in a country where he was actually a citizen. That's a white convert. He was a English citizen who wasn't Islamic, but is now Islamic, and he wants Sharia law in England. So God knows what they're heading towards. But anyway, I'm sure we've got that in Australia as well. Don't know what that one's doing in there. See a few of these. Not an Arab. Am I in the Eureka? Yeah, I am too. Not an Arab, not a Muslim, not a Jewish, but rather Israeli Christian Aramaic Maronite. My interview for the Swiss Italian TV. Oh, okay. So this guy got on board after. Oh, where is he? No, that's a long one. You should look this one up. Shadid Kalalalu. He's an Israeli Christian. All right. So he escaped. I can't remember where it was from. I think it was either Jordan or Syria. And it is really worth a listen because he came out and challenged Tucker Carlson to having him on his show after Tucker Carlson had George Stephanopoulos' sister on the show, who was bagging Israel for not allowing Christians to be discriminated against in Israel. This guy is, like he says, a Christian Aramaic Maronite. I won't go into explain that. You can look that up. But he actually gave some facts and figures about what it was like to be a Christian in Israel, and it was totally different to the interview Tucker put across. So you shouldn't believe, just like with mainstream media, you shouldn't be believing everything that you hear on social. You try and find other. This is Elbow on the ALP. Where are we?
As Prime Minister of Australia, I say this. Welcome home. As Prime Minister of Australia.
Now, I'll tell you, this is disgraceful. All right, I'm not against immigration. I work with a lot of families that come from different cultures. They're wonderful people. I love them to death. But you shouldn't be using citizenship ceremonies like this for political gain. And the ALP did it in the lead up to the last election through Tony Burke. They're now elbows on it. He's saying to people, welcome home. Well, this yet is not their home. All right. Australians have lived, bred, built businesses here. I'm all for a fair go. But how many of these people are going to be like that last guy you saw from the UK who say they want to take over our faith, they take over our institutions, who want to tear down everything we've got, who want to become the dominant religion, and who want to destroy basically our country. So Tony Burke, he rejects visas from Israel for certain people, and I've got no doubt he's playing towards this crowd. He doesn't reject visas, for example, a lot of the Gazan refugees, and here's the photo of them. Now, there's a bit of a comedy about Spot the Aussie. Well, Spot the European. Well, maybe he's one. I don't know where he's from. He could be one. There's another. Well, he's Asian, I think. But, there's a lot of non-European ones there. How many of these people do you legitimately think share our culture, our way of life, what we're doing? So, I hate to sound a bit like a racist. I'm not. But anyway, so that's, again, Tommy Robinson. That's a long listen. Or is it? No, it's not. So that's where Tommy knocked out that guy who had a crack at him. But anyway, this one's worth a listen. This really makes me sad. Again, you can go into my feed to find these. I've commented on all of them. But this is just a young fella. I hate this only because I coach so many young guys just like this fella. And he's from St Kilda in Melbourne. And sorry, but he's been brainwashed by the likes of Nick Fuentes, Myron Gaines, and who was the other one? Andrew Tate. So he's got zero idea about history. The stuff he's spewing out is just classical neo-Nazi stuff. And, I'm totally against the neo-Nazis, but I tell you what, they will get inside the heads of young men like this, and that's where things could get scary. So just trying to think. This guy, Kurt Malberg, I'm hoping at one stage to get him on the podcast. I've asked him previously. He's had a lot on. He went overseas or something. So he is worth a follow. You need to follow this guy. He comes up with so much good stuff. He's a conservative. He's a Christian conservative. He obviously shares a lot of the same values that I do, but he puts in a lot of really good threads about different subjects. Watch Thomas P. I went through that last week. That's John Ruddick. Sadly, I used to like John, but I've lost the thing. So I haven't put much there this week. I do apologise. I'll go into, where are we? Politics, put a few in there. Let's see what things we've had this week. So Trump and Zelensky. If you didn't see Zelensky's, and I'm not a huge fan of Zelensky, but his comment about suits to a reporter today was a classic. He even had Trump in stitches, so it's worth having a look. I think what Trump has accomplished today and with his meeting with Putin, and that's what they're going over here. I'll play it.
Joseph A. Bank in D.C. to buy a black 4-button. No tie, but he was spiffier. The press agrees.
President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? That's the one that attacked you last time. See, now I remember that.
I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
And in the same suit. I changed.
Why should we care?
Yeah, that was funny. This one here, if you want to get on my feed, again, I'll give it a like or something, or I'll repost it. There you go. Really good thread here. If you've got some young ones who are struggling with the NSN types and the adoration of Hitler, read through this. You'll find plenty of reasons for not having that same adoration. Here's an issue for me. I'm getting a bit sick of this. I mean, every election cycle, so in between, we get this nonsense going on. Minor parties meeting in Australia. Michael O'Neill, we need the minor parties together, blah, blah, blah. It's time for egos to be cast aside for the benefit of Australians. Well, we get that every single election cycle. I joined up with the Liberal Democrats after, what's his name, Turnbull stabbed Abbott in the back. And I reckon ever since then, so that's going well over a decade now, every election cycle we get this, how the miners have got to get together, how they've all got to work together, how they've got to put the egos aside. We had this last election. We had it when Morrison got beat by Albo. We had it before that. And then it all falls apart. And then on the right-hand side, all our preferences just get diluted. They're spread everywhere. It's one of the issues I do disagree with Topher on vehemently, because the centre-right, the right of centre vote, gets diluted every time. It's why Albo gets up with 34% of the vote. We need one united right of centre party that can win government. Forget this balance of power. We're never going to win it. We got to aim for government. The balance of power, the Greens will get it. The One Nation. The minor parties would all be better off getting behind One Nation, because at least they're increasing their vote and getting senators in the parliament. So I'm just sick of hearing it. When they come up with a united party that can challenge the majors, I'll sit back and have a really good listen. And when they've actually got a leader of those parties, not Clive Palmer, the Libertarians, I don't even know who the national leader is, but they've lost me with John Ruddock now. And if they're all going to adopt a lot of the Libertarian platforms who march across the bridge with the radical Islamist supporters, you've lost me before you've started. So, not keen on this at all. But anyway, Harvey got in a little bit of a protest. I'm not too sure how I felt about that. That's in my backyard. That's in Bentley. That lady she's gone. That business is gone. There's a large Jewish community in there. She kicked out a person because of their Israeli accent, and Harvey organised a cancel protest down there in front of a business. she's screwed. I'll tell you why she's screwed, because there is a very large Jewish population, especially in Caulfield and in Glen Ira Council. Jewish councillors just get voted in all the time. So whatever permit she might have will be lost. So I'm not too sure I agree with that. You know, she can have her views. What she did was wrong, but to cancel a person's business, their way of life, their income, yeah, not too sure how I feel about that. This is Topher again. I mentioned him before. Everyone wants to talk about immigration, but no one wants to look at the cold, hard facts. So Topher, he makes a legitimate argument about how governments have created the problems. But to turn away people's concerns about immigration, as I've shown tonight, with people who have concerns about the large Islamic groups forming in certain electorates, in forming, getting politicians into our governments, where some of them now are openly talking about forming an Islamic party. I just think he's misread this entirely. Yes, there's all those other issues, and we're all sick of it, but everyone sees what's building through our immigration. So I'm not too sure why he's banging on about it, or why he thinks he has the monopoly on being able to protest. It's just not making much sense for me as an argument. And while I disagree with Topher on a lot of things, he's a smart cookie. He should know better than that. But anyway, this guy is worth a listen to, John Spencer. No bullshit facts about what's happening in Gaza. And this is England. I follow these guys, not Templars. They're an interesting group. They're not the Freemasons, before everyone starts on that. They're just a group who believes in traditional Christian values, Anglican ones. So just have a listen.
This building behind me is 800 years old. The ground that I'm stood on has been Christian for 1,300 years. Our ancestors before us have protected this sacred land. And look what is happening to our country. It is now our time to protect our ground and our heritage. Mainstream media will turn a blind eye, try and convince us, gaslight us into thinking that, no, this is not the way. But I tell you what, Christ is King, and Christ will always be the way.
Jim Dowson here from the Knights Templar. Look, everybody's telling us, every politician tells us they've got the cure for this massive invasion. But all countries are suffering. Britain, America, Ireland, they don't have the cure because they're the ones that's doing it. London now is 70% non-white. New York has over 1 million Muslims in it. And in Ireland, a quarter of the population weren't born there. Can you imagine it? This is what's happening. This is real. We have rapes. We have murders. We have terrorist attacks, bombings, shootings. This can't go on. But nobody's going to solve it for us. The politicians won't do it. We need to stand together as Christian fighters, as Christian warriors, and put a line in the sand this far and no further. So I'm inviting you today to join the Knights Templar Order.
So very similar sentiment there to a lot of the people who want to march. Now, if people have that point of view, for example, I don't consider them NSN. I don't consider them racist or bigots. They just have legitimate fears about the way our immigration makeup, the makeup of the intake of people coming in, are building. And those fears are raised when they are watching what's happening overseas, in Europe, in the UK, even in America. In Texas, for example, there's big suburbs, clumps of areas, demographics that are returning into Muslim-only neighborhoods in Texas, of all places. So, you know, we're heading, I think people see it. They see it heading their way, and they feel powerless because no government has the courage to talk about this. I do think, and I think I'm not going to say he's our Trump because he's different to Trump, but I think he is our hope like Trump is. And I do think, and I'm praying he is, Andrew Hastie could be the man that leads that charge back. I mean, he fought against a lot of the radical Islamists when he was in the military. He has a military background. I think he has a respect for our, like that guy said, our heritage, and he understands that this is our nation and we need to fight for it. Just like that guy said, our forefathers fought for their Christian heritage. They fought for their land, their buildings, their Christianity, their way of life. And I think that's a way a lot of Australians are feeling as well. So it's been big. So I think that'll... Oh, one last thing. We're talking about abortion before. I just want to give Dr. Joanna Howe a shout out. As far as I'm concerned, this woman's a hero. She's a better person. I'm a Christian, but I'm probably a poor Christian. This lady, She gets on social media every day. She lobbies politicians. She has a faith. She talks to people who've had abortions. She's fighting every day to save as many children as she can. This woman is a saint. She's a hero. And again, she's not against the NSN types. We need more people like her. Now, it's not hard to have a look to see that she's not a traditional Aussie, but she's fighting more for Australian kids than any other Australian citizen that I've ever seen. So if you can give her a follow and give her a bit of support, please do so. She does some interesting things. I wouldn't be doing them, but she'll approach any politician, any person, and she will fight for our unborn kids and try and help them survive. She's an amazing woman, and she's definitely worth a follow. That's that guy again on another show that I talked about, that Israeli Christian. This is worth a listen. Marie Le Pen goes to war with Islam, so France really needs that. So you can see a building theme all going on here. Now I'm getting back before. So anyway, I won't bother with a lot of that. I'll come back into my feed and finish up for the night. Don't know how I'm going. I hope I've still got you all, because that was a bit around the place, I think. So here's your chance. I'm getting myself back on the screen. Oh, we've gone up 60. There you go. I surprise myself sometimes. So I'll just get my chat back up. It seems to have disappeared. No chat yet. Guys, got to start giving me something. Seriously. I was watching, like I said, I was watching that Topher thing interview. They got so much chat. I'll have to look into the when I start getting some chat. Though I don't know how it goes. If anyone can let me know. They have that paid chat where people can pay to put a question or a chat. I don't know whether I like that, but I'm not going to lie. It wouldn't hurt to, at my end, get a bit of income in to help with the bills. I got my gas bills. Oh, God, yesterday. I've got a bit behind. But very quickly, it's gone from owing 1,000 to 3,000, like in the space of 3 months. People who it'd be interesting to hear from people about them, whether they've got the same issues with their gas and how I've got gas for heating and gas for the water, and I've got electricity, obviously, for everything else. I just can't believe how big my gas bill's got. I know I've used a bit because this has been a cold bloody winter. And I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older, but I'm feeling the cold so much more. So I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older or because it's just colder. I'm not too sure which it is. But the price of keeping yourself warm is ridiculous now. So, and the fact that I work from home doesn't help, because on a cold day I'll have the gas on, or, you know, I'm happy to pay the price because I don't want to sit home freezing my butt off simply because I work from home. So, you know, there's just the little luxuries you got to have. I don't do many holidays or go out too often or anything like that. Pretty boring sort of soul. So one of my luxuries is to just be warm in the winter. So that's one thing I look at. So that's it for me for this week. That has been now well over a good hour. We'll try and get a guest or two on. If you've got an opinion, I would love to get some more guests on. I don't care whether you're an influencer on social media. I don't care whether there's a libertarian guy I've got to follow up. If you've been listening, I've got you down to follow up. I'm sorry, I've been busy. I don't care whether you agree or disagree with me. You could be an NSN type, and I'm happy to have that conversation. I don't care who you are. If you want to come on and have a legitimate debate or a legitimate discussion, if you want to put a point of view forward, as long as you can tolerate me pushing back, I'm not going to talk over you as much as I possibly can. I think if you watched any of my other podcasts, I will let people speak, and then I'll have my opinion. So you're not going to get, you know, Avi. I have mixed feelings on Avi. I think he's a good guy, but like when he gets to interview people, I think he bullies them a little bit like Piers Morgan does. I don't like that style of interviewing, but that's just me. You know, a lot of other people obviously do. Avi's got nearly 500,000 followers. I don't have anything like that. So who's me to tell him how to go about it? So we'll see how it goes. I'm just a typical Aussie guy that has an opinion, that is trying to do something to return our country back to what it was. So If that's enough to get a follow and get you guys viewing and listen to me babble on as I try to figure out all the ins and outs of this podcasting life, well done. So I'll do what I can to make a difference in my city first, in Melbourne, if that works, to my state, and eventually federally. So who knows where it will go. So that's what we want to do. So if you want to come on, have an opinion, or if you would like to get somebody else on to have an opinion, feel free to DM me at the Conservative 9. So again, it's at the, well, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll have it. Otherwise, just get on my website that I put there before, theconservative.com.au. From there, go to our contacts page and email me, and I'm happy to have you on as a guest. And I'll be trying to get some of my past guests to come back on because there's been a lot to go on. So in the next few weeks, I'll see what I can do about getting somebody else on other than me. Hey, here we go. Got a comment before I go. Super good plus. Give it a go. That's exactly right, mate. Give it a go. So if more of us give it a go, we might be able to affect some change. So like that guy said from the Knights Templar clip, if we wait for the politicians, it is never going to happen. So we've got to get on the front foot and give them some courage and encourage them to ignore the polling, to ignore the focus groups, and actually adopt some traditional conservative policies. So anyway, everyone, God bless. Good night. My dog's gone to bed, so he's not saying good night tonight. And we will see you all next week. Tuesdays, 8 o'clock. Spread the word. I'll get some links up. We'll start getting it a bit more promoted from this point on. All the best, everyone. And I'll talk to you next week.